Here's something which I just realized that makes it way more imperative and kind of grave when you think about the situation with governments, local state governments, which are currently breaking down. I don't know how it is in other countries other than the United States, but uh, I haven't witnessed, experienced, heard any indicator that the education situation in other countries is the same as the United States. Is it? Because uh, locally, in terms of American media, they don't cover situations of education situations in terms of the government of other countries on their news, right? I don't know that. But if I'm to use the United States as a, like a yardstick to as an indicator of what's going on in other states, because for the most part we think of it all as the same in terms of the governments and their activities currently, their abilities, yes. But in terms of what they take away, is it in the same order? Because your education uh, operations activities as the government, you have not, it has been how long uh, of children up until high school not going to school. Your children are going to be the future's workforce. Does this concern you? If your children are not satisfactorily receiving education from the government, what have you of private institutions and their standards these days? Are they operating at the point where they have enrollment and classes, just the same as you would think of a public school needing, but isn't? No. You have to find your way through homeschooling and the fact that you may or may not have parents which are with the faculties to provide you with assistance with your self education. I mean, you're homeschooled, your parents aren't teachers, firstly, you think. I mean, what percent of the population has a teacher for a mom or a dad? Uh, you think about the next 20 years and your workforce and its ability in terms of its compulsory education coming from elementary school, and not only math and business concepts. You have history, uh, the importance of it and why we need it. What else? Mm, your own country's language and your ability to compose, in different situations, language and statements. Your thought processes when it comes to developing ideas and writing essays in order to get out your ideas. Uh, a thesis, a dissertation. What would have you of the universe if education did not come back? And am I to assume that no schools are operating anywhere? Because if I think of flat areas where you have international conflict, planned conflict events in order to yod, in which currently you cannot do what, right? Have actual exchange of gunfire. Uh, they cannot operate, such equipment and armaments, but your education. I mean, like even in the military, they can't have their instructors pulled out in order to teach their recruits or their cadets. Mm, this this has to become, I mean, like, kind of a sign of urgency that you need to kind of get on the ball with improving your government situations everywhere. You don't. And you preserve me, and like, this is my worst case scenario fear here. You, like, as residents, like, still teeter tottering on whether or not to be a positive. You don't bring back education for your children. They cannot work. You do not have a functioning economy, finance sector, or corporate sector in 20 years. You preserve me for 20 years from now, and I come back to seeing that there's no education. You do not have a workforce, and you do not have work. You don't have enough resources to pull together unless they're of people who aren't born since homeschooling began and have not had their education up to what? Well, gee, I would hope you have a college degree. I would hope you have a bachelor's, firstly, if you want to be working at a corporation. You expect to have a GED and like through homeschooling and then like make it up the ranks to CEO or board or whatever? Is this not hitting everyone now? Uh, if not, you know, what is the situation? What is the right now the idea that is tossing people back and forth currently on whether or not to begin formalization or reformalization? Maybe trying to gather more perspective for your own situation and prioritize in order to make movements, right? Regarding career, and then when you can get to it, think about the other facets of society and your activities. Now that we think of this, uh, we don't know the demographic of those who are of the 38%, thank you, sir, who are projected to become part of the workforce. Of them, how many of them? You would assume like maybe the last percent of them to be added to the 38% are of those who recently, over the past, what, 50 to 100 years, befell their local government not providing education because it became situational, not only because of the government, but the fact that de facto they don't, by law, require children to go to school anymore, and you only pretend to get off a bus or get on a bus in front of a positive or whatever. You're not receiving the education that you're expected to have in order to be able to be a competent person for work. Whether it be, I mean, you think of your types of careers and the type of intelligence innately that you may have, and what? Your innate, like, third, like, sixth sense isn't gonna get you through life. You don't have all this, like, all inclusive, all accumulative knowledge, which is expected for you to be like holding in terms of and understanding of, and be able to, uh display to someone that you understand these concepts. That's what it is when it comes to work. I mean, you go through a interview phase. If you can't prove you've got the chops in terms of like your cognition or your like knowledge base based on anything, and it looks like you got homeschooled like like successfully, which would be what you would be thinking if your parents weren't like successful or like competent teachers. I mean, they also have their own jobs, and I think of those situations as you can't expect like your parents with 9 to 5s or like busy with their like situations to be like also your full-time teacher and expected to have expertise and the expected knowledge as a licensed teacher to have all the knowledge and the ability to teach you also. I don't know because when it comes to the United States and the fact that I've heard through even the Department of Government Efficiency, sorry, but the what vernacular that tells me that they don't regard education as something that needs to be focused on anymore. You don't hear of losing any social services or healthcare, but you may have heard that there's no more support for education because nobody requires anybody to go to school anymore. Uh, you know, the government is the only, aside from private institutions, uh, facet of society which handles that issue. Considering what? We're going to positives who will be entering the workforce and will be considering themselves, family planning with their significant others and whether or not to have children in a society where there's no school. What would have you then? I said, you look to that generation becoming the workforce. I mean, conceptually, we don't live in, no, actually, we don't live in the society where you retire at 65. You choose to when you become a negative of your society and get down with your corrupt government and decide to get old and die, right? I am 46 years old and looking 24 years old. I may look this way for the next, forever until I decide to change the age of the look of my human casing, right? Just because you turned 65 doesn't mean that you ended up in terms of like a normal cycle of a sentient being into this like disgruntled and like unable to work senior citizen. That's of your own choice there, right? Because you decided to yacht or give up or like not work anymore and not do anything or whatever. I don't know your life there, but it's not supposed to be that way, and it isn't that way actually. The thing is that you don't bring education back. You don't have any like contingent on the abilities of these people of various ages who are considered right now preserved positives. They come out to this situation. They have their own abilities and their abilities to acquire still from education institutions such as universities, theses, and doctorates with a credible, right? Still education still being provided there. You can still get your online courses and your degrees and work. They are still in their fields, not assumed to be out of their expertise and like abilities. No, but when it comes to elementary to high school, you don't have the government making children go to school. You don't have this. You have like this upcoming generation of people who don't have common sense actually. You can't have a workforce with a significant part of it being that. What happens? Uh, they're inefficient and you can't produce sales or like products which are beyond what you have these days. Technologies, you'll have different markets which are not looking very what uh your ability to like produce what is expected of you as an educated person working at any of these corporations is what looking a lot less, and then it becomes an employer's market and you have a scarcity of people needing to be put to work. You don't have enough people working, you don't have enough sales, and society does not improve. You end up with this situation continuing with what you have now, it looking frack. Does that make sense to you? The future is something to be like taken seriously now. Because if your children and my children from this point don't have the ability to go to school, And I have to be responsible for teaching them everything that I thought that they should know, based on what I know and what I think they can't live without. And then the teachers and what? You don't have the public schools and you don't have the people telling you that. You don't know that you need it anymore and you want to make money. What do you have left as your alternatives? Well, criminal activity and vices? That's not where society is supposed to be headed from this point. It already went there. And look, 60, what? 62% of the universe is gone because of it. You don't reinstill education everywhere. Of course, it's through formalization. You need all of it, right? What you expect the government to provide to you. Do we even question? I mean, like, of course, we're all of the generations which had education, aren't we? It's from the last 20 years of my preservation and before that, that I started to hear, like maybe 3 months, 6 months before that. I started to like get the feeling that education was like not focused on anymore, and they don't want to bring people back to going to school, kids. And how long have I been seeing that? Ever since I came back from, it's been before that. They stopped going to school like probably within these past 6 years of my timeline. Maybe 3 years ago they stopped going completely. 2 years ago maybe. That's how many years? That's over 200 years. 250 years maybe of the universe timeline not having the government make kids go to school. What did I say? I said 50 years. You guys working at these corporations don't have the education is what I'm realizing right now. Unless you lied or you were able to get your GED through the homeschooling process, is what you have out there is the workforce. I did not realize that, and now I have to think about your ability to produce. I mean, you go by your corporate manuals, you're fine, but do you think you have the faculties in terms of your boards and your decision making? And like, is it aligned with your corporation's culture? And do you display as an administrator of a company that you have the faculties and the abilities to successfully run a company, even as a part of it? Do you feel confident? Is it foolhardy, or are people telling you otherwise? No, just the same, I mean. The makeup of the current residents over the past, who have grown up over my preservations over 20, 50 years, it's basically the last 20, that 18-year preservation, right? A lot of people are saying that, oh, I don't remember this stuff, and this stuff I haven't seen in a long time, is what has happened to those who have been on the plane frequently. I hope this puts it all into perspective, really, when it comes to that, because the urgency needs to be felt in order for you to make sure that your children are able to work. Otherwise, it goes less than modern. It stays the same as it looks right now. It doesn't get better, actually. It will. It will in terms of what we have plans set for in front of us, but what? Right? We're pulling from the positives. We're not worried about their intelligence or their education history for the most part. I'm saying 20 years from now, right? And it also includes those who are like in their 20s right now working at corporations who didn't go to school. There's a difference when it comes to homeschooling and actually going into classes like 5 to 6 to 7 every day with all these teachers and faculty, and like it's a whole different dynamic. You consider those who don't have the parental support and are like kind of like bottom, like socioeconomic, and also those who don't care for their children, put them through homeschooling. That's the position of the government on your children. I'm hoping that this urgency that you may be feeling now that I'm trying to give to you is enough to make you more concerned about your government and its situation and doing something about it. It's formalization and reformalization. What are they doing? They're taking it all away from you. Why would you give it back to them the power to be doing any of that?